fellow babies, welcome back to the Pachter Factor on SIFTD.net. I want to thank all of you YouTube viewers who linked your Twitch accounts to your Amazon Prime accounts. That has been working. Shane has actually stepped up from just macaroni and cheese out of the box to deluxe macaroni and cheese. That's 40 cents instead of 25. So if you can keep linking, that'd be great. Instructions are right below. Pretty easy to do. You got to do it every month, but it's $2.50 from Amazon right to Shane, and it keeps the production going. So please continue to do it. Those of you who did it, thank you. It's easy. If you're watching, that's the least we can ask of you. If you're a SIFTD member and you're watching this a week early, obviously you don't have to do that, and we appreciate your patronage on Patreon. And everybody else who's just too lazy and lame to connect their Twitch account to their Prime account, follow Shane at Dinfire, follow SIFTD at SIFTD Games, follow me at Michael Pachter on Twitter. Somehow my Twitter count is popping up. It's rebounded. I'm at an all-time high. Our first question from Twitter, from a very appropriate name at Gamified94. In honor of Halloween, what's the scariest game you've ever played? That's really easy. First of all, I hate scary games. And I'm not a big scary movie guy either. I mean, when I say I'm not, I don't get scared like I run out shrieking or anything, but I just don't get the point of scary movies. So if they're really, really intelligent, and there's a really interesting twist, and I thought Aliens was like an intelligent, maybe it was the first one, Alien. Alien was a really intelligent, horror movie with a twist. I thought the Blair Witch Project was intelligent. Anyway, in games, I really don't like them. Like, I just think, that they're dumb. So the answer is Resident Evil 7 on PlayStation VR. It's the VR experience that is freaking terrifying. I can't play the game. I literally was sweating. It's like things jump out at you. And when you're watching on a TV, playing a game on a TV, you can look up and see the wall and you're like, okay, so the wall around the TV, that thing didn't really just jump out at me and I'm home and I'm in reality. Man, in VR, that is the scariest game I've ever seen. I literally possibly am an hour into it. I couldn't get further into it. It just never stops jumping out at you and scaring the shit out of you. So that by a lot. And again, I don't even know if I've ever played a Resident Evil game. Silent Hill was a big thing. I was like, why do I care? There's a lot of zombie games. I don't find zombie games scary at all. So, like the Telltale zombie, Walking Dead games, I just think are well done. They're interesting, they're fun, but it's like after a while you figure out how to kill zombies, you just don't care. And if you get bit or you get captured or killed, like, you just respawn and start again. So those I don't find scary at all, but Resident Evil 7 is the answer. And in honor of Halloween, and I'll see if I can get Shane to do a cutaway picture of it, I followed the advice of a video game writer friend of mine, Ben Kuchera. He's apparently on a hiatus from Twitter for the last year. I didn't actually notice. I think I follow him on Twitter, and I copied him or quoted him in a tweet the other day, and he hasn't tweeted in a year. So he must have gotten so much crap from all of you bad, deplorable people out there who bash anybody who says anything you don't like. But anyway, Ben challenged all of his Twitter followers, and I was one, I've been on it since 11, so probably 2011, to give out full-size candy bars. And the feedback I get from this, from my followers, from the normal people, is I don't have the money to afford to give this. And if you don't have the money, of course you don't do this. But if you find yourself more fortunate than your neighbors, and you can be that house that gives away full-size candy bars, do it. And I'm telling you, every year, every kid's like, oh, you're the cool house. We love coming here. Make that Halloween special for those kids if you can afford it. And I've gotten feedback from Twitter followers saying, hey, I bought 100 candy bars because we don't get that many. That's great. It's $50, $40, something like that. It's like, guess what? Don't go to see one movie in the theater and buy popcorn. Save $50 once and make 50 kids or 100 kids Halloween. Our next question from SIFTD, from Alex. Do you ever envision Call of Duty's Blackout Battle Royale mode being released as free-to-play with microtransactions and regular updates instead of being included in annual release? I do envision that. I have written about that. So what makes Fortnite special and profitable for Epic is that it is free. And if it's free, that just means the players don't have to spend money. They can if they want to. They don't have to. And what's great about free-to-play games is the publisher of the game doesn't actually know which of you out there is inclined to spend money and which of you just wants to have a fun experience. And the vast majority of players, in all free-to-play games, 98% don't spend money. In a game like Fortnite, it's probably more like 90% don't spend money and 10% do, and it might even be higher, like 20. But the point is, give players enough things to spend money on, and you might get lucky, and some of them might become whales, and whales mean they spend $1,000 a year or something. So, we don't know. Well, with Call of Duty, here's something we do know. Every single person who buys Call of Duty Black Ops is wealthy. And I'm saying wealthy with scare quotes because at a minimum they have a $250 console and they spent $60 on a game at a minimum. And because they're playing on console, and I know it's on PC, but because they're playing on console, they're spending $5 a month for Xbox Live or PlayStation Network. So they're pretty wealthy. Like, they've got a lot of discretionary income. And if you can afford $5 a month on PlayStation Network to play Blackout, you can afford $5 a month buying stuff inside the game. So my expectation is that a much greater number of people will spend money in Blackout and Call of Duty on console than the percentage that you see in Fortnite or PUBG or any other game. So my bias is it's going to be very profitable on console. But the point is, let's pretend Call of Duty is about the most successful Call of Duty ever, 25 or 30 million units sold, period. That's the limit of your addressable market. If only 25 or 30 million people buy Call of Duty and 100% of them play Blackout and 20% of them spend money, then you're limited. You're going to get 5 or 6 million payers, period. But if you are free to play and you get 200 million people playing your game, and you will, and you get 10% conversion, 20 million people spending money, your revenue goes up 4x. So the answer is yes, of course Activision will make it free to play. The right question is when. And Activision doesn't know if you're buying Call of Duty in order to play Blackout when they make it, or if you're playing Blackout because you already bought Call of Duty and it's in there and it's free. They have to see the traction, obviously. Let me use another publisher and compare and contrast to give you the context. Take-Two doesn't know if you buy GTA 5 in order to play GTA Online, or if people who played GTA 5 single player want to play multiplayer and they play GTA Online. So GTA Online, here we are 5 years after launch, it's still not free to play. Now, I'm not criticizing Take-Two. They've done a masterful job with that thing. But now that Red Dead's out, is it possible that they make GTA Online free to play? My personal view is 5 years in to GTA, you're not buying it because you heard GTA Online is fun. You're buying it because you got a PlayStation in 2016, 17, 18, and you asked somebody, what's the best game I could buy? And one of your buds said, oh, you got to play GTA 5. It's the best game ever. So you bought it. And then you discovered GTA Online. So I think if they separated that, they'd make money. The good thing about Call of Duty is its life cycle is a year. So GTA is still selling 5 years later. Call of Duty Black Ops is going to sell like, nothing, like maybe 500,000 units, 2 million units in 2020. So once that game is dead and no one's ever buying it again because the next game comes out, the next World War II or probably Modern Warfare. The next Modern Warfare game comes out, why not make Blackout free to play? And then a year later, when Modern Warfare has its Blackout mode, turn that into free to play. And then a year later, turn the next one into free to play. So 10 years from now, and God, I sure hope we're still doing Pachter Factor, because you did link your Twitch account to your Prime account. You remember to do that every month. 10 years from now, if you keep Shane eating macaroni and cheese, I'm going to tell you, wow, look at this. Blackout has 10 different versions, all free to play, and Take-Two is doing $1 billion a month. And I don't think they will be doing that much. But $100 million a month, great, plenty. That'll keep Call of Duty. That is plenty of revenue to keep Call of Duty fresh, all 10 Blackout modes, keep you playing, Battle Royale for the rest of your life. It looks really fun. I actually haven't played it yet. I honestly suck at PUBG. Somebody told me it's like PUBG, but done really, really well, but I haven't done it. And PUBG, I think the highest I ever got was the last 30. I literally just can't play that game. It's fun. I thought I was doing everything right, and somebody actually ran me over with a car. I don't even know how that happened. So the answer is yes, I think it will be standalone. I think that they will time it. My bias is the right time to make it free to play is 2 or 3 months before Modern Warfare launches, and they can use the Battle Royale mode in Blackout free to force everybody to sit through a promo reel, a game trailer for Modern Warfare. So imagine that. Every time you load up Battle Royale Blackout for Black Ops, it's going to say, hey, did you know that Modern Warfare 3 or 4, 5, whatever number it is, Modern Warfare 4 is coming out, on either October 12th or November 4th or whatever. And if they remind you of that every time, you might, and it's going to have a new and improved Battle Royale mode that's going to kick the shit out of this one. I think they could actually sell an extra 2 or 3 or 4 million on PC. So I think that they're going to do that. Good question. I hope that was a good answer. Next question from SIFTD from Jay Lynn. Do you know how well the Nvidia 2080 Ti is selling? The retail price is currently between $1,400 and $1,600, which is substantially higher than what Nvidia said they would sell for. My guess is demand is outstripping supply. Were fewer of these cards produced relative to other new GPU releases in the past? How do manufacturers predict demand? All right, so the interesting thing about graphics cards is that they don't cost very much to make. And by not cost very much to make, the fabrication of the card is $25, $50, $100. It's not $1,500. The technology in the card, the millions and billions of dollars that Nvidia spends to reduce all the components and make sure that it can process more data, more stuff flowing through, more pixels, that's bloody expensive. I mean, so the way Nvidia does this, and I don't cover Nvidia, so I can't give you numbers that actually make sense, but let's pretend Nvidia says we're going to make 1 million of this card lifetime, and that's how many we're going to sell. They model out and they say, okay, the R&D to make the card is going to cost us $500 per card. We're going to spend $500 million in R&D to create this card. We're going to build a plant. Now, when they build the plant, they actually probably build a plant that's going to make the next 15 generations of cards. But we're going to spend many billions of dollars on a plant, and that plant's going to pump out, tens of millions of cards. And they amortize that out and say, that's another $50 per card in spending that we're going to do. So they come up with a number, and I'm only throwing these numbers out for illustration. So the 1 million cards are going to cost us $550 each to make. The actual fabrication is only, like I said, $25 or $50, which is the plant and the people. But the 500 is the R&D that goes in. And they go, in order for us to cover the 550, give us enough of a profit deal, so that they can invest in the next generation, they say we're going to charge $1,000 wholesale. So we have to sell it to Amazon or wherever you buy your card so they can make a profit. And 1,000 wholesale means $1,400 to $1,600 retail. That's the math. That's how they do it. I made up 1 million because they may think they're going to sell 5 million or 10 million or 20 million. The fabrication isn't that expensive. On a $1,000, $1,500, card, I don't think they care that much if they overproduce them. What they do care about is quality, and what kills all CPU, GPU fabrication is the defect rate. And the defect rate is high for new technology because they keep, in order to process more pixels, essentially, they keep shrinking all the different components and adding more, and they just aren't perfect the first round. It's expensive to get it right. When you're talking about a 5-year-old graphics card that costs $25 retail, it's because they perfected it. They can pump those out. They don't cost anything to make, and they know how to do it. And so when you get your, I've got my Dell Latitude laptop. I don't know what the GPU in this thing is. It's actually pretty nice. Whatever, it's a brand new one. I don't know what card is in there, but I guarantee it's $25. I mean, it's not a $1,000 card. In my desktop here, I have two. I think they're the GeForce 1060s. I'm pretty sure 1060s. And I literally I bought this thing a year ago, but I was doing the math on a 1080, I think was the high one then. And the 1070s were half as expensive, and the 1060s were half as expensive as that, so a quarter expensive. And I just read an article on CNET or something about Oculus, and I was trying to figure out if I would get enough graphics for Oculus. And they said if you run two 1060s in parallel, you'll get enough graphics power to power each eye at 1080p, whatever, 660 frames a second. It seemed good enough to me. But I didn't spend, I mean, I think I literally spent $400 or $500 total on graphics cards for this thing. So why do you need the 2080? I have no idea. And again, finance guy, so I don't really know tech at all. I don't get it. Appreciate that you guys watch me. You're building my ego by watching my thoughts on tech. I have no idea how a GPU works or even why anybody has one. But what Nvidia does is they say, again, I'm making up these numbers. We need to recover our $500 million in R&D that it took to build this chip. If we sell 1 million of them at $1,000 wholesale, so 1,400 to 1,600 retail, we'll get back our investment and we'll make a profit, because it's a profit deal. After we do that, then we can cut the price to 800 and then again to 400 and then again to 200. And we won't make very much profit on those because again, they cost $50 to make, but we've already captured all of our R&D. And the mistake they make is, what if demand isn't 1 million? And again, I'm making up 1 million because I don't know. But what if demand is only 500,000? Well, then they don't recapture their R&D. So they price it super high, so they think that the guys who can't wait have to have all the new toys and the best, give them their money. Then they move down the cost curve, the price curve, so they can capture the rest of, they call this economic rent. But what they can't afford to do is price it too low and then have demand be too low. So, obviously if my math is right, if it costs 500 million to make and they charge $100, they'd have to sell, 5 million just to break even. If it costs $200, they'd have to sell 2.5 million. There's guys who sit there and they know what every single Nvidia chipset's ever sold for, ever. And so they figure it out. And so the answer is, how do you predict? They have data, and I don't, on what every single GeForce, I don't even know what they started at, but like 8 series, 9 series, 10 series, now 20 series, what every single one sold the first week, month, year. And remember, and again, I don't even get the technology here, Bitcoin mining, you use these GPUs. I mean, you need them. So I actually think the reason the price went up is because the application for powerful GPUs moved from just games to games and Bitcoin mining. So there's a lot going on here. Any of you who are watching this and you think I'm wrong, great. Follow me on Twitter and explain it to me, because like I said, all I know is what I read in the paper. I don't understand this business at all, but that's the best answer I can give you. I hope that's helpful. And again, follow me on Twitter and explain it in great detail, and I'll retweet it to all my fans if it makes sense to me. Our last question this week from Patreon, from OTT Apps. Between CD Projekt Red's inflammatory tweets and Rockstar's 100-hour work weeks, both have had some negative PR recently. Should either be concerned about this, or are they bulletproof? We've seen EA respond to negative PR with changes to Star Wars Battlefront 2. How much do publishers and developers care about public perception? How much should they care? There's a trade-off between public perception and gain or loss of customers. So, there are a lot of companies that make calculated decisions about how to handle the public and handle PR, and they don't all operate out of fear. Nike looked at their customer base. So here's how I think they thought about it. We're going to gain with 75% of our audience. We're going to lose with 25% of our audience. But the 25, a big chunk of them, 20 out of the 25%, don't care enough to actually not buy Nikes. They'll bitch at us, but they really will keep buying Nikes. So we'll lose 5% of sales. But on the 75%, they're going to buy Nikes instead of Adidas. We're going to win over some new customers. So it was a profit deal. It was a business decision. They took an unpopular stance by design in order to address the people they think are their customers. What you asked about here, the Rockstar 100-hour work weeks and the bad press on CD Projekt Red, the damage control by those guys was they don't want to alienate gamers and have gamers think that Red Dead Redemption was made in a sweatshop. and that everybody who made it is starving and living in a cell and will never see their families again. So they backpedal and they go, it was only a few months. I'm just paraphrasing Dan Houser. It's only a few months and it was only the writing team and I was there with them every day. Then they did what I thought was an adult thing. They invited in, some members of the press, made their employees available. Jason Schreier, if you want to read a great article, was that Kotaku? I think so. Yeah. Jason wrote a multi-page article on Kotaku. He's really smart, by the way, and writes great. I highly encourage you to read it if you care about what happened at Rockstar. And he goes into great depth, and it's a really balanced, interesting article. And what it says is, a lot of people work 100-hour weeks, and they worked more than just a month or two. And most of them were okay with it because they understand what the big games business is, and some of them weren't. And he presents it all really well. And presents out that, hey, look, even if you don't like it, you suck it up because you get that on your resume and you get to say to your next job, I worked on Red Dead Redemption. Okay, so I don't think that CD Projekt Red is trying to send out a message that we hate any particular demographic or group, but being cute and saying something doesn't matter can cause massive consequences. So there's a line where some people think they're doing something that's not harmful, but obviously if the audience is offended, then it is offensive. The point is, and this is a concept in the law I'll teach you, they call this the eggshell plaintiff. You take your wounded person the way you find them. So if you happen to offend a very sensitive person, it's on you. And so you need to conduct yourself as a business. I'm just saying, you can do whatever you want in your personal life. But as a business, you have to think about if people are offended, if you use, a hashtag that could be interpreted by, members of the LGBTQ community as offensive, then if you offend them, it's on you. You can't offend them. If you have a lot of purchasers of Red Dead Redemption who think 100-hour work weeks aren't appropriate, think about it before you give your employees 100-hour work weeks. I'll tell you the truth. I don't think most consumers care at all about anything. I mean, unfortunately. With Red Dead, I think that the PR is important because you don't want your customer to think you don't care about your employees. At the end of the day, Red Dead got a 95 on Xbox and a 96 on PlayStation, and you're all going to go buy it. And you don't think for a second about the people who put a 100-hour work week in. And at the end of the day, the 100-hour guy right now isn't working 100 hours anymore. He's waiting for his giant bonus that he's going to get for putting out Red Dead, and it's going to sell really well. So, I'm not suggesting that you shouldn't feel sorry for people who are pressured into working hours that they can't. To me, the more egregious stories are the guys who get fired because they say, I can't work late tonight because my wife is sick and I got to pick up my kid from school. Well, that's a bad story. You don't want that to happen. So unions exist to make sure that there are safe working conditions. And I agree, working 100 hours a week for years is unsafe. You're going to make a mistake. You're going to be tired. It's going to break up marriages. But, when the average wage in the video game industry is pushing $100,000 a year, it's a lot of money. And, I get that you can't, $100,000 a year if you work 100 hours is about the same as $40,000 a year if you work 40 hours. So I get that. But they don't work 100 hours all the time. They work 100 hours occasionally. I don't think it's right, and it's a function of poor planning. It's not a function of evil bosses who just want to torture their workers. The problem is, and we'll use Red Dead, that game's been in development for 8.5 years. There's no way that the 200 people that are primarily responsible for the game worked 100 hours a week for 8 years. Not possible. My guess is the last 6 months, portions of the group worked 100 hours. And what I understand, the QA testers are the guys who got beat up the most. Those guys don't make $100,000. And they're viewed by the bosses as disposable because everybody wants to be a QA tester at Rockstar. So I get it. I mean, they're definitely oppressing those guys. But the problem comes when a date is announced for the game's launch. So October 26th was announced back in February. And my bias is this last 7 months, They realized we can never make October 26th if we don't take 50, 100 people and make them work 100 hours a week. So the poor planning was, if the game wasn't going to be ready without that, maybe you make the game come out next year, in spring. I totally get it's a business. I covered Take-Two. I actually like those guys. I think they do a great job. I get that they couldn't say Red Dead's coming out next year because they've already done that. So let's put it back on the Hausers who run Rockstar. They need to plan better. I mean, I don't know what else to say. Until you get good planning in video game development, you're going to have crunch time. But the truth is, guys, the products you buy are created by super talented people who work really hard, period, to do it. And they don't have the luxury of time if their employers promise that the game will be out through poor planning before it's ready. So they have to put in the crunch time. So the answer to the question is, how much do they care about public perception? How much should they care? You guys bitch and moan about when you read an article about the 100-hour work weeks, and then you buy the game anyway. So they only care if they think it will impact your future purchase. You specifically called out Battlefront 2. If they mess up the whole experience with Star Wars Battlefront, they create, loot boxes where you can't play Darth Vader unless you buy, $80 or $100 worth of loot boxes. Then you say, screw this, I'm never buying a Star Wars game again. They care a lot about that because they have blown it. They've tarnished the brand. Disney cares. It's tarnished their brand. So those mistakes can be fatal. So agreed, they have to care if it pisses you off enough to keep you from buying their game. If it doesn't and you're going to buy it anyway, honestly, they don't care. That's it for Pachter Factor. We'll see you next week. Thanks for joining us. I wanted to do a quick conversation on Scotch because I get a lot of feedback. When are you going to go back to Scotch lessons? Too early for me. I drank nearly half a bottle last night. Last night was the Dodger game. Staying up watching 18 innings of Dodgers after getting up at 3:40 on Friday morning. So I'm tired now. And I drank Scotch last night, so I'm not drinking it now. But I've been getting a lot of questions about kind of entry level and what do you buy and what's good and what should you try and stuff. I'd suggest to you, if you're not yet a Scotch drinker, go easy. And here's the problem with Scotch. The cheap whiskeys are blended, the super cheap ones. And there's popular brands like Johnny Walker Red. They're very harsh. And they taste like Scotch, they are Scotch, but they burn. And people won't drink Scotch because it burns so much. The more aged it is, the older it is, and particularly single malts, they screen out the harshness by maturing them in casks, and the casks take away the harshness. So if you're going to try Scotch and you're on a budget and you just want to try it, I would recommend you start with Glenlivet, the Glenlivet. It's about $25 a bottle. And there's another one called Glenfiddich, Glenfiddich. It's also about $25 a bottle. It might be 30. It's not more than 30. And if you really hunt, like if you go to Costco, the discounter stores like Walmart and Costco tend to have them for closer to 20, 22. Start with that. The 12-year-olds of those, or Glenmorangie, Glenmorangie, 10, the 10-year-old, those are all great starter scotches. Glenmorangie might even be 22. I know that $20 sounds like a lot. If you drink $10 wine, you're like $20 scotch. A bottle of scotch is 25 ounces. So for $25, you get 25 drinks. That's a lot. So name a wine, you get 25 glasses of wine for $25. Doesn't exist. So, Chuck, $2 Chuck. So really, I mean, again, if you don't like it, you're burning $25. Trust me, if any of my neighbors walked over here with a bottle of, Glenmorangie that had that much missing, I would take it in a heartbeat and I would enjoy it. So I suggest you start with those and learn what your tastes are. And then if you decide you like it and you want to step up, the 30 plus bottles are the ones that you want to start looking at. Glenmoray, Moray, 2 words, is an inexpensive whiskey that is a little better single malt. Probably $29. And then as you step up to higher, The Balvenie, Balvenie, 12-year-old is about 45. Dalmore is about 50. Those are my two favorites. There are plenty. And if you like peaty, Bruichladdich, Bruichladdich, really great, even the inexpensive ones. Port Charlotte, there's a bunch. So try the peaty ones. My guess is you won't like them. They're an acquired taste. But you might. And if you like the smoky ones, if you're a smoker, you'll like the smoky ones. Try all those. I will come back to more about Scotch later. But you've got to work your way up. I'm a big wine drinker, and I spend an average of about $50 a bottle for wine. So I really do spend a lot on my wine. I started out drinking Lancers. Look that up. I mean, that is drugstore wine, you know, in a not see-through bottle. At the time, it was probably $3 or $5 a bottle. So, you know, you've got to start somewhere. I would start with the Glenlivet or Glenfiddich. They're both very good. If you're going to drink blended, I would probably start with like Dewar's, not Johnny Walker Red. Dewar's is very light, easy to try, and you can decide if you like the flavor of Scotch. It's an acquired taste. Don't put ice in it. Ice is for babies. You will not be my fellow baby. You'll be just a baby if you drink Scotch with ice.